chance to do that now. My name is Douglas Nelson, principal of Wootton High School, and I appreciate all of you being here for our third Principals Coffee Chat of the year, this one for the month of November. Just a little note about framing and how this works. Generally, we receive some questions in advance. Some of them are new items that have come up and you just need a direct answer, or it's something that's kind of a straightforward response. And some of these are recursive items that come back and there's like almost an update given, and we revisit things that we've revisited before. For our November coffee chat, we do not have any questions submitted in advance. And so that means we have an open forum this morning for questions that you would like to share. I will do my best to give updates or provide those responses. And if I don't, I will do my best to get your information and see where I can get that information and provide you a response outside of this forum. So thank you again for being here. That's the framing for our coffee chat. Just a couple of notes before we get started. Thanksgiving, it is my favorite holiday. So I just wanted to say to you all, I hope that you have a really wonderful Thanksgiving break. If you're traveling, I hope those travels are easy. If you're getting together with family, I hope you enjoy that time. And I hope you have really delicious food if that is what you do for this holiday. And for me is what I really, really enjoy. So I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And I just also wanted to express a little thanks for some individuals that are here for this coffee chat who visit and come back. So some of us are becoming familiar and we're talking about things over time. I just wanted to express my appreciation. If you're coming back and revisiting and you're really sticking with this, I do believe that that helps get information, a flow of information out to our Wootton community that I think is important. So I just wanted to express my appreciation for those of you that come back to the Principals Coffee Chat time and time again to interact with me. All right, so with that being said, I'm gonna open up the chat, take a look to see if there's any questions that populate, or if you want to come off mute and share a question directly with me, we're gonna open it up for that now.
Principal Nelson, this is Mia. Good morning.
Hi, Mia, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Listen, this is not a question per se, but more of an observation and truly not a criticism or anything like that. Just an observation that I thought I'd share with you. I feel like maybe the parents' open house that just occurred was a bit of a lost opportunity, if you will. It seemed like the invitation was a little bit buried, made once, no reminder was sent. And then, speaking to others, a few were on this call actually, we sort of noticed there were so few of us that came to parent open house. And I'm just wondering whether there might be an opportunity next time for perhaps the PTSA or the administration to have more of a hand in welcoming parents. And I say that because, as you well know and have said before, when you have a soft touch point as a parent in the school, you feel more engaged, you feel, not only welcome, but that you're part of your child's education, that you're a real partner. And not to sound crass, but it helps when you're fundraising to have parents who have, been inside, been in the classroom, feel really, really in tune with the school. So I just wanted to offer that up to you as an observation.
I think it's a fair observation, Mia, and I think you've very accurately described it. Some of the things as a principal that some of the questions that I think go right back to this particular function. So open house happens for us annually here in the school system. It is like a back to school night. It is an expectation. All schools must do it. And one of the big questions that I kind of observe or I really think about is this still a match to our community where individuals are? Or are these some of the events that are holdovers from the past and maybe they need to be revisioned? One central question that I have is, I agree that if we have parents coming in, engaging in classrooms, and they are a part of getting a flavor of what their child's day is, that setup makes a lot of sense to me. And that might help get parents through the doors more often, more engaged moving forward, help us with fundraising, all of these some helpful things to the school. But I also wonder at a foundation if open house is really what our community wants, is to come through the door, to carve out that time to spend your day at school. We're always very busy. I think we spend some time now more in these forums that are online and sometimes not always in person as we used to. So I just want to share, like, that's my perspective. So we complete them because we're required to do them. And I just wonder, do they really meet our needs at this point in time? So if I could come back, do you feel like if we improve our communication, if maybe there's more of a PTSA touch point, do you believe that that would significantly increase our numbers or make that more of an engagement opportunity?
I would always say yes to both of those questions. I mean, look, it's like so frustrating, right? Because it's always like the same 10, 20% of a community that
Mhm.
seems to want to come and, like, be involved, right? I know that that's frustrating from a fundraising perspective as well, right? But even if we had like something set up in the media center, a few balloons that welcome parents, a bit of a more of a warm feeling, and saying, hey, we've got like coffee and water, and if you need to take a break, come on in the media center. We have different administrators coming in and out, so that you can actually put faces to names. I do think that's helpful. I also think maybe there's an opportunity, and this is not to encroach on anybody's toes,
Mhm.
but even for parents who feel like their kids are struggling, or not as engaged in the classroom, maybe there's a way for counseling to reach out and just say, hey, this is a great time for you to come and see what's happening in the classroom, and then we can chat afterwards if you have any questions specifically, to sort of reach a broader swath of the community. I've noticed that the parents that come are typically not, they're not the ones whose kids are struggling, right? I mean, it's like
Right.
we're counting, like, we just want a kind of confirmation and acknowledgement that, yeah, that this is working out well. I'm happy with this, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, it sure does make sense, right? I'll also make a connection. I do think that if you heard, like, we really want you to come in and see this, our numbers might increase. I think that setup makes a lot of sense. One thing we're also banking on me is that after open house comes conferences. And conferences is really our opportunity to give that touch point. So while I feel like coming through the door, experiencing the classroom, I think the conversation that you mentioned is particularly important. And so there is a whole system in which we are reaching out through counselors, through teachers, to do that touch point, to talk to very specific parents and caregivers, where we feel like that conversation might help a grade improve. It might help a student to arrive to school on time. And so that's happening right now. So I want you to know there's a second thing that happens right after open house that moves into that space a little bit. While I do acknowledge, I think open house is a chance for it too.
I also just wonder if I can just add before we
Hi,
jump to
Robin.
other
Good morning.
conversation. Good morning, Mr. Nelson. I'm wondering if it's about parent involvement in general.
Mhm.
I know our cross country team had our banquet last night. It's probably one of the larger athletic teams. And there was like 4 parents that worked on planning the whole event after much begging from other parents to get involved and to help. So I wonder if there is just like across the board, and I know it's something that you're working on with the students and it's much appreciated. I've seen the difference, but I'm wondering if it's the parents as well who sort of have taken a back seat to engage, to being engaged in school in general. And if there's something, like, I know that we brainstorm with the coach after, like, maybe here are some things that you can do to set yourself up for success for next year, because 2 to 4 parents can't plan a banquet on their own for 150 people. So I just think it's parent, I don't know if apathy is the right word, but parent engagement for sure seems to be not as high as it's been in previous years.
So in that, Robin, I would 100% acknowledge. I think that that is in fact the case. So I noticed that when I first came here as a principal. And it's definitely something that you were paying attention to, because I really made the move to high school right at the advent of the COVID
Right.
pandemic, right? So you're trying to sense, like, is this something that shifted? Is this something different to this school? But I really believe, having been here a year, that our parent engagement is down for whatever that reason is. And I feel like it does have an impact on the building. And so I would be very open as a principal to whatever we could do to really increase that. I would imagine some of the PTSA executive board that is here on this principal's coffee chat this morning, right? They're always seeking, like, what can we do, I think, to increase our numbers? We need that. Allie, your hand is up.
It is. I agree with you, but I think it's a bigger issue than just within the schools, if that makes you feel either better or worse. But I think it's a global issue. I think more and more people are just feeling overwhelmed in general in life, and more are feeling stressed. And so they're giving up in some different ways that perhaps in the past they used to hold on to in a tighter way. So you're certainly not alone. I see it in all sorts of different spaces, fewer volunteers and fewer people connecting into the physical space, in part because of what COVID and Zoom did for people. So you're not alone. I don't know if that's comforting or distressing, but it's an ongoing challenge, I think.
Right. So I do kind of want to connect with this. I want everybody to know first, I have an open door for any of the ideas that might nurture more participation from parents. I would really love to see that as the principal. To connect back to you, Mia, if I could request just a little simple email from you that have some of your bulleted ideas that you think might maybe raise the bar on parent open house, because that's an item we're going to come back to. I believe that's not changing in the eyes of MCPS going into next year, and where it's like a really big deal in elementary school. I think high schools are always looking for some ideas that really can help get more people in for open house. So I would really appreciate your ideas, and simple bulleted list would be really helpful for me.
You got it. It's no problem,
Perfect.
Principal.
Thanks. So I'm going to hop off over to the chat because we have a few questions in here. So we'll start with this one. Would love to hear an update about the various swastikas found at Wootton. If person who did it was found, consequences and anything. And would it be, I know it's been rough for so many people these days, right? I'll start with that one. And I'm really glad that we continue to talk about it in this forum. I've been really observing, trying to find ways to connect and really feel where the students are emotionally ever since the terrorist attack that took place earlier this year. And I feel like that's been very important to see kind of where students, staff are emotionally and what ways we can support. So when then there were a couple of swastikas drawn at the school, I think that that really adds a lot of fear, sense of insecurity, worries about safety, and what does that really mean for the school? And so I do really want to center in student and staff emotion around when that took place. And it's very much been on my mind. I just want to say to everybody here, if you know of anyone who is really struggling, if a conversation would help to get information, or a touch point with that student would help your son or daughter or your student, whatever that is, please know I'm open. We can connect with counselors. I can have conversations. They do really seem to help. So I just want to really acknowledge everyone's extra sense of worry in this time when an event like this occurs. So now let's go back to the most recent thing that happened, where we did have swastika drawn on desks, and then there was one on a bathroom wall. So I will start with the things that were drawn on furniture. That feels like something that has happened at the school before. And we have had students that have drawn that. And in this case, we have identified some of those students that did that drawing. So the ones most recent, there was a student identified, an administrator worked on that investigation, made parent contact, assigned consequences, all of those things that you would do when you know that there was a student involved. So for me as a principal, I want to know that someone was identified. It paints a more accurate picture of what we are dealing with when there is an opportunity to talk directly with the student involved and ask those probing questions about why. Why would you do that? Where did this come from? And so it just creates a more complete picture of the things that contribute to this. And for the ones drawn on furniture, we were able to identify a student that did that. The one on the bathroom wall, I do want to share, we were not able to identify who did that. Bathrooms are a very challenging location in the school. There are no cameras in there. The best you can do is see who moves in and out. And then you have to put that up against when the report is made. And then time is a factor, because you're not really in control about how often. No one is in a bathroom all the time. So you kind of have this gap in time, or maybe you have a prompt report. So it can be really challenging, is my point, to investigate what happens around a bathroom. What I want to share with all of you, because I hope I've really been open in this space, is all of the drawing of swastikas have felt like specific to a piece of furniture. And then this one was on a wall. And we haven't had something drawn like that here at the school before. So we did investigate that. We were not able to identify who did it, but it certainly is something I've taken note of, because placing it on a wall in a bathroom, it's more of a public place to put an image like that. And individuals, they're going to walk it. Students are going to walk in continually throughout the day. And you've put it in a place where for sure everyone has to see it. So I just want to share with you all that one I took note of. And I want to give a little broader context in this forum, that whoever did that put it in a place where it seems to me they wanted that to be seen. So I'll see if there's any follow-up or clarifying questions based on that information that I have to share with you. So, Roman, if I can require, I'm going to connect dots to staying in this same theme. So you're asking about consequences for the offense. Because this is a part of a student's individual discipline, they have protections, right? So this becomes a part of record. And so I cannot just tell you what I did. But what I can say is they are a significant consequence that we give out. And in this, with actions such as this, that we deem hate bias, and that they're targeted, right? We feel that they go back and they really impact students in the building. You have very broad control as a principal to look at that and make consequences and determinations. I use the student code of conduct. I work with the other administrators, and we make a collaborative decision about what we're going to do based on that. So I cannot tell you exactly what it is, but I would say it's a significant consequence. And we have broad control within the student code of conduct to do what we need to address that matter. And it's not the only thing we do. I also want you all to know it's pretty rare that all we do is just one thing. Like, you get this consequence and that's it, we move forward. We really look at it. There's restorative justice aspects. There's oftentimes, for drawing of a swastika, for me, education for that individual straightforward, right? We've got to educate in and around that and what impact happens. So it is not just one thing that we do either. And Rob, may I ask you, since yours connects to this as well, you have this as a direct message. Do you want your question to be shared? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
so
Yeah.
Rob has asked for this group, do you anticipate that MCPS overall leadership making follow-up statements or education information regarding anti-Semitism or the recent incidences through Montgomery County? I do not have an answer to that. I don't know. I will share, as a principal, I have not heard anything that there is going to be additional messaging, right, in and around the topic of anti-Semitism. What I do want you all to know is that there are two kind of actions we are taking at a school very soon, or already have, to really work in this space of hate and anti-Semitism. And then there's more work that's taking place. So we have a group that's really working on educating in history and anti-Semitism here, right? It's a follow-up step. But we just did culture of respect, which is recognizing when things like bullying, hate, those things that feel uncomfortable, we know that they're wrong. It's like making sure the students have the information that they know to report. We cannot address what we do not know about. And if students don't have the knowledge and the information and trust to report that information, then we don't know about it at all. And it goes completely unchecked. My greatest fear. So we've just recently educated specifically about that. The next step in December is we're moving into ADL's program, No Place for Hate. And so we're starting to make those moves as we seek that designation. So that specific training and, activities that ADL has rolled out to help really work in this space of addressing hate in schools. And so we're doing that in December. So those are some immediate things we're doing right here, right now. While it's not messaging, it is some tangible actions that we're taking. Thank you. Any other follow-up questions or things I can clarify a little further? Oh, and one other reminder, I don't want to miss saying this. We also, there's a group that works on educating in and around the Holocaust, Jewish history, anti-Semitism, and we do that in different ways at different groups, but the concept here is how do we educate all grade levels around this? And then it's a progression. You kind of do different things year by year, whether it's like the teaching of night and then activities specifically around this. We have presenters and family members of Holocaust survivors that come in and teach and talk with the students. So we do different activities. That group is preparing for their yearly engagement with students around this as well. So I don't have all the details right now, but they're in preparation mode. So Sally just put a question, just revisiting this. I got to this a little earlier. We were able to identify one student in the most recent drawings of swastikas. So one we identified, one we did not.
And I'm just curious, what happens with some of the students if they are like, it's one thing if you write something on the wall at school.
Mm-hmm.
It is also something different if I am posting it on my social media. So what is happening with students if they are posting hate on their social media, or for sure, or at the very minimum, inaccurate information about what's happening in the public sphere right now, in the public space right now? What is happening in those spaces where students feel uncomfortable or scared because they see the hate that their student peers are sharing? So they may not write it on the wall of school, but they're writing it on the wall of their Instagram. So what is happening in those incidences?
Robin, the upright answer is unless social media is going to come back to a student-to-student interaction, something here at school under our control, right? Then we will look into the matter and we will address it. There has not been a lot of that. I hear a lot from students that they see a lot of this, and my recommendation is consistently around this: block it.
Okay.
So I do feel a particular way as an administrator, now a principal. I do not feel that we necessarily are telling students what to do with their social media. And that is the place, where they express. And so there's a line there. And if you're worried or you see some specific posts in that regard that you do not like, my worry is that it seems like some students just continue to keep going back to it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it's not right. It upsets you so much. Like, the most powerful thing I think that you can do is block it.
There's certainly an obligation on our teens to be able, and our students to be able to know how to manage what they're seeing. And there's such a grace space for the responsibility of what the school can have for when their students are posting inaccurate and hate information.
Yeah, very true.
It makes it very difficult. I understand that, but I'm just putting it out there because it is absolutely a thing that is happening. And while it may not be on the wall of school, it doesn't make a student feel any less fearful when they walk into the classroom, knowing that it's posted in other places.
Right. And I think that's, I think it's a real challenge. I also think schools are a microcosm of the community that we live in. And these views, actually, they are in our community. So this is no different than, I think, walking down the grocery store aisle. So I feel that it is incumbent upon the school to educate. We're really leaning into that space. We definitely have a plan, although I think there's always more places for us to go, or ways to think about how do we educate in a different way or resource our students differently, because I think that if it isn't the school, then it's hit or miss. It's piecemeal at best. Whether students get it or not, you don't really know. So I think our education our focus for that is very important. And that's also a place where I think we can educate, is giving students knowledge and possible skills about when you are in this space that doesn't always have clear guardrails. And social media platforms are certainly that place. when students are there, what are you in control of and what moves can you make to make sure you're seeing accurate information, and what steps can you take if it's not? So it's very much on my mind.
I know it is, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's Mia again. I'm sorry.
Hi,
to
Mia.
jump Again, I just want to say this to the group. I would be more than happy. I'd be delighted, okay, to give money to any fund that we need to invite a speaker from the, Anti-Defamation League, anyone reputable who will come and speak to the parents in particular, right, in this community, and help us to fortify what the school is trying to do, right? I do really believe strongly in these partnerships, right? So teachers and administrators can only do so much. I mean, you're absolutely right, Principal Nelson. And this is a reflection of what's happening and being manifested in the broader community, right? And so if we as parents need at home, some education about messaging and discussion and kind of monitoring and that type of thing, I would gladly give money to invite a speaker.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the ideas. So I would attend that event, Mia. So just so you know, if we had something like that, I most certainly would show up. I'm very interested to see like what the experts are saying specifically about really reading and understanding social media. And to our PTSA, like we were, they're always nurturing kind of ideas like this. So I don't know if there's a good way to set something like that up, but I appreciate the idea. And any of those, please know my email inbox. If you throw those my way, I will definitely be on the lookout. So I'm going to step into some of the questions. We have a list in the chat, so we'll go right in order here. This one is around, my child is having issues in a difficult math class. And is there still a way for them to move to a different math class that isn't honors, or is it too late? So things have changed a little bit. And so some information that I want you to know. In the past, there used to be something called a transcript mark, and it happened at a very specific day in the 9 weeks in which across the school system, anyone that wanted to make a move, if you went from an honors to a non-honors class, you still got a transcript mark. MCPS took that away last year, and so that no longer happens. So you can make moves within specific content from one level to another level, and that can happen. But there is also just one thing that I want to say to set this up well. Making that move now, the further you go, the other classes are still moving along and you're in different places, and that transition point is not always an easy one. So this comes with one recommendation up front. The sooner that you do this, the better off you are, because the other class continues, you're moving further into the curriculum, further into the content, and you're not always necessarily getting the same thing. So the answer to that is it too late? It is not too late. It becomes more challenging as time moves on. Your next step, if you really want to explore this, is to reach out to your child's counselor and see what your options are. Changing a class, it might be possible, it may not. And the other, there's sometimes trickle down effects as someone who's like really done schedules and master scheduling. There's really two things to always know about when you make that request of a counselor. So you may make that request, and if there are not seats available in that class, right? Because you may not be the only family or student that's hoping to move from an honors math class to an on level. As those moves continue to make, seats are disappearing. And so there's only so many of them, and we cannot go over class capacity. So it's very much based upon what is available and what is not available. And the second part to this is sometimes if your fourth period is where your math class is, you're hoping to find an available seat in that fourth period class because you want to keep the schedule as consistent as it can be. That's not always an option. If that class is full, then you're facing another decision you have to make, which is not always ideal, is like, are you willing to really change your entire schedule around to make this move? So I'm not saying any of those things are happening necessarily with your child, but I just want you to know all of that information going into it, because they might be things that you really have to talk out if you are seeking a move to another class. So question from Carl, this one is about renovations. If Wootton renovations are approved, and would they begin in summer 2027 or at the beginning of that year, or too early to know? So I did see Brian Raven is on this call, so I'm gonna turn it over to him. Brian, I hope you don't mind if there's anything you want to add on once I share what I know. So we are, and I'll acknowledge, we also went over and did a lot of great advocacy. So a big expression of thanks and appreciation for the continued support of Wootton students and parents to really kind of push for this need in our building. That was just accomplished, Carl. And so next, they'll go through the budgeting process. It is my understanding that Wootton still is in the draft document for our renovations to be 2029. That has not shifted, but that is many years out. And so I don't know. I don't think it would be the beginning of 2027 if we have a project date of 2029. And so your question, is it too early to know? It feels a bit too early to know. But what we do know is that 2029 is still our identified year to have a renovation in the capital improvements budget. Brian, anything to add in?
Yeah, I'll just add in that normally when these projects happen, they are 2-year projects. They tend to be, although there's some projects recently that have been extended to 3 years. And I was talking to one of the Board of Education members, Lynn Harris, and she was sharing with me that they're having trouble with the bidding process, and that so they're having to extend out. I think there's supply chain issues, but typically these projects are 2 years. They start usually in the summertime when there's nobody in the building. So 2 years from summer 27 to summer 29. So that is typically the way it works, but we have to continue to work on keeping our project on track for the start in 27.
So Brian, may I repeat back to you for my own, if we have a 2029 date, that is for completion.
Correct. Yeah, when you see that in the CIP book, it shows the completion date. And so normally the projects are 2 years. So they, yeah, so you can figure out the start date that way.
So then to connect to the question, and that one goes back to Carl. So then yes, 2027 summer might be our go date. Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
So some of these comments that are in the chat, we've talked through a bit of them, but here's one maybe we didn't get to. How will the renovation 2027 affect the current freshman class? To Sapna, if we start in 2027, the summer of, those freshmen would have just graduated, so not in effect to them.
Great, thank you. That was my question.
Yep. And thank you for this question, Sapna. We'll move to this one. Can you please provide an update on the bathroom issue which were discussed a few weeks ago? Locking and unlocking bathrooms, missing bathroom supplies, and getting vape detectors. So my update from the last time hasn't shifted. I also haven't received any more information. For those of you that maybe didn't hear me talk to this the last time, the idea is that the school system is seeking vape detectors for all MCPS high schools to have them installed by the end of the school year. My hope in getting those devices is that we will not have to do then the systematic locking of bathrooms as we are, which is the current preventative measure for vaping in bathrooms and other things that take place. So Sapna, the update, bathrooms are still being locked and unlocked periodically. Again, there's one on the first floor that is locked in the AM and one on the second floor in the AM. Then it shifts during lunch, and then different bathrooms are locked in PM on the same floors. Say they move locations. So if you knew where it was locked in the morning on the first floor, it's going to be a different bathroom in the PM. That system is still in place. It is still happening. And I know this because I had met with the Principals Advisory Committee, which is a student group, just this week, and they were asking questions about the same thing. So it is definitely still happening. I hear from the students, like, they're all locked, but I will tell you, when I move through the school, I check them, I see students going into unlocked bathrooms. They are not all locked. That I just think it's the frustration of students encountering the one bathroom they need happens to be the one that is locked, and they move throughout the building. So we're really still in the same place that we were the last time. I have not heard any issues about the missing bathroom supplies. But I can check in on that one again, Sapna. I'm happy to just follow up with the business office and see if they're getting any reports or things like that. One note with the missing supplies, the SGA, it's my understanding, I'm sure either they're very close or it's out there. They do for our school a very helpful tool. They keep a tool of a Google form that allows you to do a very specific report. If something like that happens, you're out of supplies or something just isn't there and you need it, you can report it. And then the business office follows up with building services and they replace it. So that's supposed to be out in bathrooms or will be soon. So that should help us there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Allie, update on senior graduation date and location. I just got 2 questions from seniors about this yesterday. So we are still on track for getting information about senior graduation. What I know right now, based on the most recent high school principals PLC meeting that happens monthly, right now contracts are being signed. So what happens, we submit our preference sheet and then central office contracts those facilities for schools. So we have to basically be sure all the money is clear. Names are signed on the dotted line with all of the locations we're going to use, and that's happening now. So that puts us on target to make that announcement just before winter break. And I'm very hopeful that we will get there. So there will be a communication right before winter break of a tentative date and location, but you very much count on that. I've never really seen them change. So we'll be getting you that information right before winter break. So Roman, your question, is there a chance that we can have an online student absent form instead of a paper one? I don't know the answer to that one, but I can take it back. What I also would just like to share, so everyone has this, that one will take a little time. So Roman, particularly now, you visit, so maybe we can come back to this one as well. I do want everyone to know for the attendance office, Ms. Vincenti is out for the next month. So that means through the main office is where that information will be flowing. We are seeking a substitute to be in for the next month, and she will be back. So right now, the attendance office is not open, functioning with the normal staff that it normally would be. So I would need a little time. Like, I would not want to make that decision without consultation with the attendance secretary, Ms. Vincenti, directly. So if we can revisit that one, but we certainly can ask that question.
If I can add a little more context to that, Doug.
Mhm.
Last year, the comment was made that they couldn't tell the parents had signed the forms. Well, we all know that students can forge our signatures, and especially these days where we sign so little in writing anyway, I don't know that that's really a validation that the parents filled out any more than, say, Google asking you to verify your email and even just sending a confirmation to that email address. We got a notice that your child's out of school. Can you just, verify you got it, some kind of thing. Or Word forms have the ability to require you to sign in using your Microsoft Word credentials, right? Which, again, there's a chance your children may know, but I still think it's not a valid justification to keep using a paper-based system.
So I don't know. I can't really justify whether. The one thing I do think about in your comment, Jessica, is I do know that attendance offices are audited. And schools tend to be a little behind and old school in our processes. I mean, like, I will just share with you, MCPS still does paper timesheets in 2023 because of auditing functions. So attendance offices are audited also. So while it's not just a justification, there may be a reason. So I don't want to just say, yes, we can do that. Roman, I appreciate your comment that like WJ has gone there, so maybe they've figured something out and we can take a look at it. But again, we'll need time with individuals not being here and currently on leave to come back and see whether there's an option to look at that. Are there any other questions out there? All right, well, that might be all of us getting through our questions today. We didn't have the questions in advance, but I just thank you all. This was a really engaging dialogue. I appreciate the follow-up and the questions to the chat. As I said before, I really do hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving and it's really enjoyable, and safe travels to everyone that has to travel. Just an expression, to you all. Every day I come into Wootton, I'm just like astounded with your children and the wonderful staff that work with them. They do such incredible things. So I truly am also so thankful for them. And I really appreciate your engagement here. Without this connection, we just don't set this up as best we can for our kids. So thank you for being here this morning. I really appreciate everyone. And I hope you have a great day, weekend, and Thanksgiving. Thank you.
One administrative thing before everyone disappears, there will not be a coffee chat in December. So the next coffee chat is likely scheduled for January.
Great. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you, Doug.
Appreciate it.